now get into the data. As you can see here, here's a lovely bar chart from F1 telemetry data on the fastest to the slowest obviously being Pierre Gasly, who did a whoopsie, George Russell the fastest, Max Verstappen just a couple of tenths shy, and Oscar Piastri just 4 tenths shy, along with Antonelli. So that's your top 2 rows. Norris, as we know, didn't do particularly good, did he? He was, to be fair, he was within a tenth of Piastri, but it felt once again coming here that Oscar Piastri was the weaker of the 2 drivers in the practice sessions, and then Hamilton obviously out qualifying Leclerc, which is quite good. Now, in terms of track dominance, obviously Russell's going to be more, but let's look at where that track dominance is. Because when you look at it, when we go around it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as we're coming here, very good in the medium speed corner here, and Russell basically maintains it up until this would have been the breaking point where it's all about Verstappen. But once you get on the power, a medium speed corner here, and it's Piastri. But as we know, those Mercedes were at least in practice, particularly fast down the straights. There's the proof there. And again, in the slower, in the slow corner, it's all about Max Verstappen, the slow medium corner. But again, this is not a straight. That Mercedes really working well in the slow corner there, and then going down the straight there. Again, another medium speed corner for Piastri. Verstappen in the slow corner, the straight all about Mercedes. But then 14 and 15, all the way here down the straight, is all about Max Verstappen. And then it's really interesting to see that, isn't it? So when we look at the DRS delta, who is the fastest? Are Mercedes the fastest? Well, let's have a look, shall we? Mercedes on 316, they're not the fastest. The fastest seem to be Aston Martin on 317 and Alpine. McLaren, once again, the slowest on 314 with that DRS. But even if you take the DRS away, they're on 270, which is the 3rd slowest, other than Williams and VCARB, which is interesting. But once again, have McLaren gone down to the downforce? This is a high downforce circuit. Have they put maybe a bit of extra downforce on to protect those tyres? This is a circuit that is hard, but not impossible to overtake. It's not Monaco. You can overtake it. It is a bit risky though, and you need, like they say, your car needs to be so much faster than the car ahead, but you just need to wait for a mistake as well, and give them, and give the other guy a chance. So moving on from that, as we here's the top speeds in bar chart from 317 for Antonelli, Colapinto, and Stroll. Sadly, Stroll couldn't use that speed to get out of Q1, but there we go. When we look at the slowest, it's Hadjar, Lawson, but then Hadjar, in spite of being the slowest, he's up there in Q3, wasn't he? Norris 313 and Piastri 314, again amongst the slowest, but then Verstappen on 314. So, what does that say? It was Tsunoda on the 316. That was the fastest of the 2 Red Bulls. Maybe Red Bull have gone down that downforce and they're looking after their tyres, which is why they've been quite good. This, obviously, in the race is going to be a lot different to Baku and Monza in relation to what the tyres are going to do. In terms of throttle usage, VCARB leads that on 61%, all the way down to 50.1% with Alpine. But what does it mean? I'm never really sure, because McLaren on 51.7%. It's all to do with how they set the car up, and that is a massive difference between VCARB, the first and the second people. So VCARB on 61% of that throttle usage, and Aston Martin on 55.4%. I mean, that is pretty massive, isn't it? Is that partial throttle, full throttle? There we go. There, lift and braking. I mean. In terms of the braking, it's fairly even amongst the 20%, unless you are Piastri or Verstappen, who own the 18 and the 19.1 and the 18.8 with Norris. In terms of how much you're on the brakes, Hamilton quite high on the brakes on 20.8%. In terms of lifting, it's interesting that both the McLaren drivers are lifting the most. Yet I was saying about the downforce, so that almost contradicts my point in a way. So there we go. It's just data, isn't it? What does it mean? What does it mean? Now, this is the interesting bit here. 2024 versus 2025. So, Alpine are about 2 tenths slower. McLaren, we did say 1,000ths faster, but 0.0. Ferrari 0.06. Haas 0.25 faster. The only ones that are slower are Alpine. 0.26 faster for Aston Martin. Pretty much the same for Williams. 0.34 for Red Bull. 0.44 for VCARB. 0.68 for Mercedes, which is really, really significant. Not as big as the 1.43 for Kick Sauber. They are really good. Is it Audi then kicking them into shape going into 2026? Again, Mercedes, though, nicely done. That's really good, isn't it? Top speeds, we've already seen the top. We've already done the top speeds there, but that's another look at it if you're interested. But this is interesting. Sector 1, fastest sector, Sector 1, George Russell on a 26.4. Kimi Antonelli on a 26.4 as well. We're talking hundreds. 0.415 for Russell, 0.482 for Kimi Antonelli. I mean, we're talking tiny bits. But then it's Verstappen, not Piastri, that is third. And he is just shy of a tenth off the fastest of George Russell. Sector 2, again, it is George Russell, 37.329. And Kimi Antonelli, 37.413, so within a tenth. And again, Verstappen just thousandths off that. And it's the last sector. If you are looking at Kimi Antonelli here, and all the way down there, he did not have a good last sector. And that's potentially why he's out the top three on a 24.4. But it's Max Verstappen on a 25.2. It's a fairly fast section as well. But then, again, that's why with their top speeds, they are quite fast. But then it's Hamilton, third for 25.285, which is quite interesting. And Hamilton, the fastest of the two Ferraris by about a tenth. So there's not that much in between them. If once when we're looking at slowest, it's Bortoleto, Gasly, then Colapinto. Not really surprising when we're looking at the slowest drivers to see. Obviously, the Alpines, both Alpines there. Now, when we want to look at the McLarens, Piastri had the fourth fastest Sector 1. He had the second, the sixth fastest Sector 2. And wow, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The eighth fastest Sector 3 had Piastri. Norris was fastest Sector 2 and Sector 3, but he kind of like lost, 3/4 of a tenth, as you can see here, compared to Piastri. Piastri in Sector 1, Piastri did a 26.556, and Norris doing a 26.629 in that first sector. But it's always interesting, but there you go. That's the sectors. Sector 1 and Sector 3 seem to be quite fast, and Sector 2 is all about those, the corners. But Mercedes doing really well here. Maybe the other reason why they didn't quite match Verstappen here, George Russell, and in particular Kimi Antonelli, is experience with Kimi Antonelli in terms of looking after those tyres until the last sector. As we know, those soft tyres were quite delicate. You could get 2 runs out of them if you really, really looked after them and had a mega cool-down lap. But still, maybe Verstappen's car is looking after those tyres better than the Mercedes. Maybe. And that's obviously the qualifying again. So let's now we've spoken about our big data, so to speak, our data. Let's now get into, as I take a drink, let's get into the winners and losers of qualifying.